Alrighty, welcome back. It's been a bit since Amy and I recorded together because of vacations
Yeah.
and other such things. So we are back and we are at it. And today, this is going to be a little bit strange, but this is going to be a little bit of like the diary of Jeff,
Oh, I
with
love these ones.
the lessons that can be gleaned. And I just used the word gleaned
I
already.
was gonna comment on it, but I feel
30
like I do
seconds
that.
in, I'm on it.
Very
So,
impressive, sir.
so quick headlines, and then we'll dig into what happened. So, uh, my wife and I went on our first kid-free getaway for more than an overnight since before the twins were born. Uh, Not this past week, but the week before. Amy was gone last week, which is why we didn't get to record this last week,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're here. And prior to that, I did a 2 week sort of mini cut um, leading up to the vacation. And so I'm going to talk about my experience within the mini cut, some things that went well, some things that didn't quite go well, and then also talk about what happened on the vacation, some experiences that I had on the vacation, and then what happened coming out of the vacation. And I think that there is going to be a lot of things that are valuable and a lot of things that are going to be relatable throughout this. And we will also touch on a little teaser, my first and only ever experience taking an Orange Theory class.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that'll be coming down your way. You'll get my thoughts on Orange Theory. So if you
I've
haven't,
never done Orange Theory.
yes, it was a little
An
teaser.
experience.
It was an experience. It was tough.
Mm-hmm.
It was a hard workout. All right, so we're gonna start back at the beginning. So my wife and I were gonna go on this vacation, um, and so I decided leading up to it, I was like, I got 2 weeks. Let me just go hard for 2 weeks so that I feel my best going into vacation. Whatever. Am I gonna make incredible, massive leaps in 2 weeks? Of course not. But it was also just like I can do something for 2 weeks, so let me do something for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And let me kind of do this. And so I set up for myself what were going to be sort of the boundaries or the rules of my mini cut. And there were a few things that I decided I wanted to do. So the first one was nutritionally. Because I know for me what is on plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need to, at this point, I've been doing it long enough. I don't need to count calories or really do anything. I know, like, if I eat this way,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a deficit and I'm gonna lose body fat. Like, I know exactly what I eat during the day, and it's not dramatically different from what I eat normally. It was basically just I don't deviate from my normal food. And
Yeah.
I gave like an example day, I think on the last podcast, of like what I eat basically every day, and
Mm-hmm.
then I have dinner, which is my variety. But I just basically said I'm gonna not go off of plan aside from two times in the 2 weeks. And I knew that they were coming. We had out of town friends that were coming into town. So one day I was going to go golfing with my buddy. So I wanted to have a drink or two when I was golfing. And then that buddy and his wife and Megan and I and another couple friend, we were going to go out to dinner a different night. And so I wanted to not be worried about what I was doing those 2 nights or those 2 times, but the rest of it. So again, those were 2 instances out of I eat 5 times a day when I'm in a deficit. I eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, morning snack, afternoon snack.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I do. So 2 weeks, 5 times a day. That's 70 times. I was going to be on plan for 68 of them.
Mm-hmm.
That was what I kind of set up. And now that is a way too high percentage.
It's a very strict goal.
Very aggressive.
Yeah.
But I, again, could set out as that as the goal because it was 2 weeks.
Short term. Mm-hmm.
Like there's no chance that I would do that if I was looking to do it for anything longer than 2 weeks. And as it turns out, as I will talk about, even 2 weeks was too long. Mm-hmm. Not because I fell off plan, but life happens too much in that amount of time. Is the real challenge. And so that was the main thing. I also was going to do 4 total body strength workouts a week. I had been doing 2 or 3, and I hadn't been doing total body. I was doing some different. I was doing an upper body, lower body split. So I did total body. I'll talk about why I did total. But I chose total body in a bit, and just my thoughts on total body workouts. I did a whole episode on like your workout split. I think it's like episode 17 or something like that. It's like building your workout plan part 2. So if you want to do that, part 1 is a little bit shorter, and then part 2 there. Both of them have benefits, but so 4 total body workouts. I was going to do a little bit more working out in the gym. I was 12,000 steps or above every day. So not averaging 12,000 steps, but like hitting 12,000 steps or above. Those were the 3 kind of like mechanical things I was going to do differently. And then the 2 sort of soft skills that I was going to do that were going to hopefully make those things easier were I was going to not use my phone in bed, which is a habit I was trying to get away from anyway.
Yeah, it's a good habit to break.
And which I typically hadn't done when I was reading a book. So what I wanted to add back in, but I hadn't been reading a book. Like I finished a book and I hadn't started a new one. So I was going to read 10 or more pages a day. And so those things happened to work together fairly well. And those are the 2 things that I did 100%. Everything else I did not do. No, that's not true. I did hit my 8 workouts in 2 weeks.
I was wondering, yeah.
I did hit my 8 workouts in 2 weeks.
You were at the gym a lot.
Yeah, I hit my 8 workouts in 2 weeks. And I did my reading and my my phone. I did those things. I want to start there actually, because that's going to be the quickest thing that I touch on. And then we'll get into the other things. Then I'll tell you about my results and then what happened in the midst of it. So those 2 things paired together are actually an important note on what it is that we're trying. Whenever we try to make a change, that's what we need to focus on, which is I didn't just say I'm not going to do my phone in bed. I had to give myself something else to do in bed instead. I had to replace the negative with a positive, and it's even easier. You don't have to say I'm not going to do the negative. If I had just said I'm going to read 10 or more pages a day, more than likely I was going to do that in bed, which means I probably would have not done my phone anyway. So when we try to make a change by a negative, we try to do a change by an avoidance, we try to do a change by detracting something. We leave a void unless we fill it with something positive. So we're much more likely to stick with to not doing the thing that we're trying not to do. For me, playing with my phone in bed, scrolling on my phone in bed, I'm much more likely to be successful with that if I'm giving myself something positive to do instead. So give myself a positive goal, something to shoot for, and then let that the byproduct of that be I do less of the thing that I'm trying not to do. As a for instance, that's nutritionally, if I was trying to eat less sweets at night, I would probably be better off eating more protein and vegetables at dinner. And that's going to make me more full, so I'm not going to be as snacky, right? So instead of saying, "Oh, I'm just going to not eat snacks," right? I'm going to not snack as much. I'm instead going to focus on I'm going to eat more of this. That's a positive thing that I can do because I'll make a really dumb analogy here as I.
Your analogies are never dumb.
No, this one's gonna be pretty dumb. So so last football season, I did like some sports betting with a buddy of mine, like $2 bets, and we would do we called it Best Buds parlays because he lives in Virginia. This is the one who came up and golfed, like just total dorks about it.
Best Buds,
yeah. But my buddy, who it was just something for us because he's the only one who I would go to the bars and watch football games with. None of my friends who still live around here are really that invested in football or care that much. And so we would do it, and then we could be texting back and forth during the games, like, "Hey, how's it going?" like what, how's your bet doing, whatever it is. And so we would pick a player prop, like this receiver is going to get more than 35 yards, right? And then he would get one, and if they both happened, then we would win. And so we would also be able to give each other a hard time because it's like, oh, your bet, like you screwed it up, like I did my job, like you messed it up. And so we would do this, but we would always pick the overs for the most part, like over or under, because at some point you hit the over, and then you are a winner for the rest of the game.
Yep.
If it's an under, you have to wait until the final second of the game. Otherwise, it could hit. Like you're also rooting for like failure. You're rooting for things to not happen.
Pretty much, yeah.
Versus rooting, it was a lot more fun to root for the overs because at some point we would text each other like halfway through the game and we're like, "Oh, we won," or like my leg hit, so get your act together. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing great. What are you doing? And so the idea of setting a positive goal, at some point we hit it. And then we feel good versus like, oh, I'm not going to snack today. Well, you're only successful with that goal when you put your head on the pillow and you close your eyes.
Right.
If your goal is I'm going to eat protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, then I finished dinner and I've hit my protein and I've hit my goal for the day. Like, go me. So setting positive goals for yourself is a much more beneficial way of framing your goals. And so if you're trying to stop doing something, you're better off starting doing something else and letting that be the thing that you're chasing. And then the byproduct of that is you'll do less of the other thing. So that's lesson number 1.
I like that lesson, though, because like as soon as you said you had to swap out, the only thing I pictured was Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom, swapping out. And then you won't have that big boulder chasing you all day.
No. Got to do it smooth. So next is the workouts.
Yeah.
Why total body? I am working harder when I'm doing total body because I can pair together exercises. So I'll do like an upper body exercise paired with a lower body exercise. So I'll do bench press with single leg deadlifts or something like that. So I'll do my set of bench press, rest for 60 or 90 seconds, and then go do my set of single leg deadlifts. And so I can kind of, my heart rate's working a little bit more. It also allowed me more flexibility within my schedule because I don't need a certain amount of rest between days. I can just be like, all right, if I have to go back-to-back days, I can just do back-to-back days because I'm not obliterating my muscles in any specific thing. And then finally, if I missed a day, like if for some reason I didn't hit 4 days, I didn't like leave something off of my plan. Like if I was going upper body, lower body, and then I didn't do my 4th day, I will have missed a whole half of the lower body work that I should have done for the week.
Right.
So it allowed me a little bit more flexibility in that way, to be consistent with it. And there was something too, and people, like, I talk a lot about the nutrition side of things, and we talk a lot about how exercise is on the bottom of the hierarchy of fat loss. Like strength training is 6, cardio is 7. For a lot of people, there's a real benefit to doing a workout when you're in a fat loss phase because it feels satisfying. Like you feel like you've done something. Like it's not super satisfying. It's not the same level of satisfying to get to the end of the day and be like, I did my calories today. As it is to like, I finished a hard workout.
Yeah.
Like there's something satisfying, gratifying about being successful. Again, as a binary, like that's a positive thing. I did my workout, check, like it's done, versus like the whole day you're trying to be in your calorie deficit. So it's a lot more satisfying to do that. So I wanted to add some more strength training in. And it was good. It was like I did a new program that I hadn't done in a bit and did some exercises I hadn't done in a bit. And it was good to just like, something new, got my brain tickled, and I had a new goal, and it was enough to drive me to train more than I had trained in probably 6 months. I hadn't done 4 days a week in at least 6 months, probably closer to 9 to 12, like done
Really?
more than 2 weeks. I just haven't been training as much.
Yeah.
For various reasons, but a lot of it's just been I've just been having a hard time getting myself up to do it. And so it was, and so to tease the after effect, my training's been great the last 2 weeks since I came back. Because I got that a little bit, and I'll also talk about what happened on vacation in the midst of that. So that's the training side of things. The walking and the nutrition. So the reason why these things didn't go as well as they could have, some of this is my choices. A lot of it is I would have had to, based on some of the circumstances of life that happened, I would have had to do some like really, what would have, not over the top, but it would have been like other things would have been sacrificed in order to do these things that I was not willing to sacrifice for something that was an arbitrary thing. Like, I'm trying to get in shape for a vacation, but I feel fine if I didn't lose anything, right? Like, it wasn't so necessary that I was willing to go, walk on my walking pad down here at 9:30 at night for an hour. You know what I mean? Like, which is what I would have had to do some of the days. Like, it just wasn't working that way. And I'm going to share this. It's not a big thing. It's not the point of the podcast, but as an example of like life happens, which is, I got to figure out the timing of it, but it was, I started the cut on a Tuesday. That Friday, Megan's grandmother fell at 5:00 in the morning and had to get taken to the emergency room. So Megan was there. She passed away on Saturday.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and it was, just a brief. This is nothing to do with it, but just a brief moment for Glennis, who was Megan's nana, who I've known for 13, going on 14 years now. Was nana to my kids, lived with my in-laws for the last 6 years. So like my kids saw her every time they went over there. 3 days prior, Levi was over there and made cookies with my mother-in-law and was like, I want to bring some to Nana, and ran them up to her room and gave her cookies. So trying to explain to my 4-year-old that like this is the first death that we've really had, like Nana's gone. And he's like, well, when is she coming back?
Yeah.
And she's not. And so that's challenging. She was a spitfire, man. Yeah. Let me tell you something. Like, she was so hysterical, like super like crude sense of humor. So funny, like painted her face on every day. Like, you can't come in, you can't see me without my face on. Had like a wig as an afro, like her nails all done up, like just making it was like one of the first times that I met her. She made a joke about my penis. Like one of the first, one of the very, no, like that was her sense of humor. Like to Megan, man. To me, like we were not dating. It was just like, that was her sense of humor, and Megan tells a story, like when she was a little kid, she used to, Glennis used to say, like, Megan, what's in Nana's cup? And Megan would say, booze. Like, this was who she was, yeah. And she was just, she was very much kind of a matriarch type figure. Megan's family has a lake property that she grew up at. Megan did, and has been in the family, and Glennis was up there all summer, every summer until 4 years ago, when she finally stopped going up. And, so she was always there. She was like a camper. And so you pull the boat in, and she'd stand in the screen door of her camper and just like yell out at you, because she would never come out. She would just like shout out at you. And then she would go down to the pub, which is at the end, Poor People's Pub, and
I know it well in
in
Wakefield.
Ossipee. Yeah, so
Yeah.
she was she'd go sit at the bar every night and drink and do all that sort of thing. And so she was just always there. You know, it was one of those people that you're like, she's just going to be here forever, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so she passed away. So that was really hard. You know, it was my father-in-law's mom. And I mean, I love all of my in-laws, but my father-in-law is potentially my favorite person in the entire world. And to see him kind of going through this and how special she was to him, is just really heartbreaking. And for Megan to see her go through it, like she was there. She like watched her take her last breath, which has been like challenging for Megan to deal with. So anyway, that was a lot of what happened, right? And so that happened Friday and Saturday. So Friday and Saturday were supposed to look a certain way, right? And then obviously didn't, because Megan was at the hospital for all of those days. So I was home with the 3 kids, and it wasn't like we were planning to do stuff. And so I was just kind of like, we needed to be home in case we needed to do anything, whatever. So I just wasn't a lot of activity. And then again, it would have been a situation where for me to hit my steps on Friday, I would have had to put all the kids down. Megan comes home, and I would have had to leave Megan upstairs after she just said goodbye to her Nana to come downstairs and hit my steps. Right. So that's just not
going to happen.
That's not going to happen. And it's just not a priority there. And so it wasn't even a conversation that was going to be what happened. Then there was Saturday. Then there's obviously like a bunch of family things that happened over the course of the next week. You know, like we went up to the lake, and we were at the lake. We went to the pub one night, you know, to kind of like hang her picture on the wall. Me and some of the family, the guys, we went up and we golfed up there, kind of, you know what I mean? And so we went to her uncle's house for sort of a wake with a bunch of family in town. And so there was a lot of circumstances where it wasn't totally off the rails for me, but the idea that I'm not going to have a drink at the wake, you know, for Glennis is just like, it's not that I want to be with everybody in that moment, you know? And so there were a lot of those things that happened that impacted the nutrition side of things. Then it also impacted some of the step side of things as well. So again, it wasn't like it was a disaster in terms of whether or not I hit it, but I certainly wasn't where I was hoping, you know, what I was shooting for. But again, life happens. And so I think that one of the big lessons in there for me is a couple fold. One, life happens, right? And so if we're waiting for the perfect time, I thought that those 2 weeks were going to be the perfect time. And then they weren't, you know, so there is no perfect time. Life is going to happen. And that doesn't mean, though, that because that happened, that then I threw it out the window, because that's the flip side of it. I still did on the days that I could. I still did my workouts. I still did my steps on the days that it made sense. And I was really solid with my nutrition. But instead of 68 for 70, I went 60 for 70, which is still 83%. But it wasn't like, oh, I blew it out of the park, and I probably left a little bit of results on the table. But the results were, in 2 weeks, on the scale at least, I lost 4 pounds. Which, again, 2 of that is probably at least water weight and stuff like that. But I might have lost still a pound to 2 pounds of body fat just from doing the few things that I did a little bit better. And so just because something isn't perfect doesn't mean it's not worth it. And that's kind of been my lesson for the last couple of weeks. And I'll tell another story kind of related to that in a second, which is because this is where that phrase came from in my head. I don't know if I've learned it. I heard it somewhere else, but like just because something isn't perfect doesn't mean it's not worth it is going to be like becoming a mantra for me a little bit right now.
That's a good one.
Because last Wednesday, so Wednesdays are supposed to be my day with Levi this year, where I'm one-on-one with Levi. And last Wednesday was the first one. Mm-hmm. And so I took him to Pawtuckaway State Park and we went for like a hike. And if you saw this post, you know what I'm going to say. And so he was great until he wasn't, basically. Mm-hmm. So he was having a great time, and then he comes back and he's giving me just all sorts of attitude on the way back. And just like, I'm not talking to you, you know, at some point on the way back as I'm carrying him on my shoulders and the sticks that he has to bring with him in my other hand, and just giving me a bunch of attitude on the way back. We get into the car and he said something else with a big attitude again. Mm-hmm. And I was like, dude, like, you're just really not speaking kindly to me right now. I really, like, it would be great if you started to use kinder words. And he's like, I don't have to do that. And I was like, first, it was very hard for me to be like, the hell you do? But I was like, okay, well, if you're not going to do that, that's fine. But that means that I don't have to listen to you when you're talking to me if you're not talking to me in a kind voice. He's like, mm-hmm. Yes, you do. Daddy, you do. You have to listen to me. And I was like, I'm not. And so I'm just like not responding to him while he's screaming at me. Mm-hmm. He stops for a second and then he chucks his water bottle from the back seat. And it hits the passenger's armrest / console, scares me. Mm-hmm. And I'm driving in the car. I'm like, right. Dude, that's not okay. So I was like, excuse me. This is exactly mm-hmm. the tone of, I was like, excuse me. That is not okay. Like, you do not throw things in the car. That was not safe. Mm-hmm. Waterworks, of right? Course, 4-year-old. Because he's emotional already. Like, he's at a height. Like, it wouldn't have mattered what I said. He was whatever. Hungry, tired, whatever. Yeah. And it wasn't even that. It was like 10:30 in the morning, right? But he was just whatever. He was just
physical exertion, man.
Yeah.
Takes it
so
out.
So then he starts sobbing, and then he's like, "You need to apologize to me. You need to say sorry to me." I was like, "I didn't do anything wrong. Right. Like, you need to apologize for me for being a jerk. Like, what are we talking about?" He's like, "No, you do it first." I was like, what is happening?
I'm sorry that you're a jerk.
So then I did the non-apology apology where I was like, I'm sorry that because we call it a stern voice. He's like, you use a stern voice and it made me sad. God, and I was like, so then God. I'm like, oh my God. So I said, I use a stern voice because what you did wasn't okay. So you need to apologize because it wasn't okay. He's like, you apologize first. And so I was like, I'm going to do a non-apology apology where I was like, I'm sorry that my stern voice made you sad. He's like, no, that's not how you do it. Say I'm sorry, but not with the other part. I was like, dude, I'm not like, no. And I'm not getting into an argument with a 4-year-old. So he just screaming and screaming and screaming and being like 25-minute drive home. Just absolute conniption. Get him home. You know, get a snack and some milk into him, put a show on, and he's like regulated and he's fine, right? And then he starts giving me more attitude because we got to turn around, we got to go to the dentist. He's like, no, I don't want to go. I'm like, I will put you in the car. Like, so we get to the dentist, and the dentist is like, hey, you know, how's it going? He's like, Daddy and I went for a hike today. It was so fun. We saw rocks and trees, and he was like, this is the best thing ever. And then the next day, I have to take him to the doctor, and the doctor's like, how's your summer? And he goes, Daddy and I went for a hike yesterday. I was like, son of a gun, dude. You like are treating this like this was a great experience for you.
Yeah, and for you're still traumatized.
I'm like, I'm not over this. I'm not. And so it was a moment for me, like from his perspective, it was this great thing that he's still talking about. And he's like, the other day I was somewhere and Megan took him and the kids with some friends on like another trail. He's like, Daddy, we went on a trail. It was like a hike that you and me did, but a little different. And he's telling me all about it. I'm like, this was like this awesome thing for him, even though it like kind of sucked for a large portion of it. Mm-hmm. And that was where it was born for me. It's like, just because something wasn't perfect doesn't mean it wasn't worth it. Mm-hmm. Because even though it wasn't like because I texted Megan on the ride back, we hit a stop sign and he's screaming at me. I was like, Wednesdays might have been a mistake.
Oh
Like, I
no.
don't know why I bother to do anything fun. Like, this is every parent has sent this at some
Yep.
point, I think.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like, why do we even
100%.
bother?
Yep.
This is the, and if you haven't, then,
You will.
I'll pay you money, or you don't have old enough kids.
Right.
I'll pay you money to teach me your wisdom, Yoda, or,
Mm-hmm.
your kids aren't old enough yet. But, like, that was how it felt. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't worth doing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
some of there's still a lot of benefit from things that are imperfect. Like, very few things are going to go exactly how we plan them to.
Mm-hmm.
And so there still can be great progress and a lot of good coming from not perfect. And so I set out an expectation for myself for this 2-week thing of, like, basically perfection for 2
Or
weeks,
very close to it.
which I knew was a tall ask, but I was
Mm-hmm.
like, for 2 weeks, I'm pretty solid with this. I might be able to do it. But then life happened. And it would have been very easy to just throw in the towel
Mm-hmm.
in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we get stuck, is we get in these binary things of, like, it's I'm all in or I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of middle ground between black and white, right? There's a lot of gray there, and the idea, I think I'm doing this as a post tomorrow, so it'll already have been up by the time that this goes live. But a post that I wrote, is the analogy that I give is like me calling it quits after 4 days because Glennis passed away and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it perfectly,
Mm-hmm.
is like turning down $1 million because it's not $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
It's like $1 million would still change my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it might not be $1 billion where you got FU money and you can just do whatever you want, but it still would change your life. And so I might not have, what would perfection have gotten me? Maybe 5 pounds
Mm-hmm.
in 2 weeks.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe 6 pounds. Like, if I'm like, but also, what is the the value in that versus the cost? But also, like, 4 pounds is still great.
Really good. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why spit on that because it can't be everything?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is we get stuck in this place of, like, I'm not doing what I think I ought to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing the results that I think I ought to see. And so therefore I diminish the results that I'm getting.
Mm-hmm.
I diminish what I'm doing because it's not everything. I feel like we see the gap between where we are and where we want to be versus seeing where we could, the gap between where we are and where we would be if we did nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the measuring stick is not between you and perfection. It's between you and inaction. That might have been a bar. That might have been good.
Ooh.
That might have been a good.
That just hit me right in the heart. It hit my heart.
Because we're closer to inaction than we are to perfection. So there's a lot of room for us here.
Inaction's a whole lot easier.
Mm-hmm. But I've said all the time, like, my competition is not other coaches. There's a reason there's other coaches on this podcast. There's a reason why in 2 weeks I'm going to fly to Edmonton, Ontario. I don't even know if it's Ontario. Alberta. I don't know. Edmonton, Alberta. Toronto. Edmonton, Alberta, to spend a weekend with other coaches. Mm-hmm. Why yesterday I had a message from another coach who's like, hey, do you guys want to, like, me and a couple other coaches, we're going to form like an accountability group. An alliance. Sort of thing, like, basically form an alliance. Jim and Dwight alliance, right? Like, we lift each other up because we know that the competition for coaches is not other good coaches, but it's Netflix. Mm-hmm. The competition for me is not other coaches or even Orange Theory or the Weight Watchers or anything like that. Mm-hmm. In some ways, but like the bigger competitor is inaction, is apathy, is all or nothing thinking. And so if I can get people in the place where they're willing to recognize that nowhere else in our life do we expect perfection of ourselves, like parenting, like the idea that I'm going to make it through a whole day without a kid having a tantrum is just ludicrous. It's optimistic to the point of foolishness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no evidence that would ever happen. But that doesn't mean that my kids are bad kids if they have a
Not
meltdown,
at all.
right?
Oh, they're kids.
Well, and it's adults. Like, when was the last time you had a meltdown? Like, dude, I punched
Yesterday.
a wall. Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, it just
put me in traffic. My meltdowns happen a lot easier.
Oh, 100%. So it's important for us to recognize that. The next piece. So that was kind of how the lead up to the vacation went.
Mm-hmm.
Just very interesting time in my life, but these things just happen. And so don't wait, start, recognize that imperfect action is better than perfect inaction, and move. So then we go on the vacation. And again, the last, I think I've talked about this on here. My wife and I have not gone on many vacations together. We did our honeymoon. We did a week in Tahoe where we got pregnant with Levi.
Really fun week.
Yeah, it was a great time. And then after Levi, in the summer of 2021, when Megan was pregnant with the twins, we went out to California. That was kind of a photography trip for her. Like a day and a half of that was, or like a day plus of that was photography, which is why we decided to go to California. It wouldn't have been like on the top of the thing, but we went to kind of Disney World and San Diego Zoo and stuff like that. And that was for 4 days, 3 nights. And that was the last time we did we did one double overnight that was in Cooperstown, New York for another wedding of hers. So we drove to Cooperstown, stayed the night. She shot a wedding the next day and I golfed, and then we stayed that night and then we drove back the next day. So like that was work, that I just kind of went with her on. We've never done more than 36 hours away since we had 3 kids. That was like uninterrupted time for us. And so we went 4 days, 3 nights. It was the longest we'd been. And so super shout out to our friends and family who took care of the kids for us, who were super willing. And honestly, it went a lot better than we could have hoped. Like, it was a little bit of a soft launch for our 10-year anniversaries in 2 years, and I would love to do a week away then. Like, that's the timeline that I'm thinking about.
Wow, you're really starting them to train them on this.
But that's when I would love, and it went so well. It went really, really well. It didn't feel like anybody had too much on their plate. They were separate. Like, the twins were with my mom and my mother-in-law for a lot of the time, and they were in daycare. Levi just went to our friend's house. They have 4 kids, and one of them's 6 months, younger than him, and they're like best friends.
Yeah,
they just had a blast. Like,
of
she
course
sent
they
us
did.
pictures. Yeah, played in mud and trampoline, and they just had a blast. Went on trails, had an absolute ball. And so because it was like that, Megan and I had a really fantastic time away. It was so great for us to like reconnect and be like, oh, I still like you. Like,
isn't that nice?
You're not the enemy. The kids are the enemy. The real problem. Like, so it was really, really lovely to have that time for just us and to reconnect. And we didn't do a lot. We kind of intentionally went to a place where we didn't feel like we needed to do a lot, but we could do things if we wanted to.
I mean, even just walking around Burlington is doing something without really doing something.
Which is what we did one of the days.
Yeah.
So like, we got up there, and the first day, like, we just had lunch and we just kind of hung out. We walked around a little bit, with dinner. We ate really, really well. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. Like, we had nice restaurants each of the 3 nights that we were there. We hung out by the pool. We went shopping, or Megan went shopping. I walked along. with her in Church Street, which is their kind of like marketplace walk down area there. I golfed and she did a spa one day. Like it was great. It was very nice. And we worked out every morning. So like we went to different things because she likes, it's nice to work out when you don't have the have to figure out the kid situation or feel like for me, it's like, all right, I either do this or this is an hour of work that I'm not doing. So it was nice to do that. And we tried a few different things. There's a coach friend of mine who's been on this podcast, Ren, who has a gym up in Burlington. So I went and I worked out with him one of the mornings.
Nice.
While Megan took a class. And it was great. And so while we were up there, here's the little insert for Orange Theory, and then I'll talk about kind of the after effects of that. But things that I did on vacation for my fitness and nutrition and health. Okay, naturally, I ended up averaging over 11,000 steps over those 4 days because even with the driving, like we just walked around and I walked to the holes at the golf course just because I enjoy it when I don't have anything going on. And so got a lot of walking in. Not like, oh, I'm going to try to do this. It was just very easy to walk, which was great. I brought protein shakes with me for a specific time of the day, which was mid-afternoon, because I knew that we were going to, so I had, we had breakfast, whatever we were going to have, which is, again, we ate out for every meal.
You have to. When
so
you're
eating out for every meal. So I knew that it was going to be higher calorie. I was going to have no shortage of opportunity to find carbs and fats. I knew protein and fiber were going to be harder to come by. And so like in the morning, we would have like a breakfast sandwich or something like that. I had an omelet one morning, but like it was so slow to like go down to and get up. I was just like, I'm going to just get a breakfast sandwich. But got breakfast sandwich most of the mornings. Lunch was kind of whatever we were getting. It was a sandwich or something like that. And then I would have a shake because we weren't having dinner until 7+ at night. And so I didn't want to go into dinner starving because then I'm going to eat all the bread and I'm going to eat all the whatever. So I just would have a protein shake in the middle of the afternoon just to kind of tide me over to dinner. Because also I knew that I wasn't like, restaurants don't give you a lot of protein.
No.
Because it's expensive. So you might make for yourself 6 or 8 ounces of protein. They're going to give you 3 or 4. That's just what they're going to do. And so I knew that I wasn't getting as much protein in my meals as I would if I was home. So I needed to get a little bit more. And so I would do the shake there. That helped me get the protein. It also helped tide me over for those things. But I had a drink at every time I sat down for lunch or dinner, at least one, if not 2. We had dessert at all 3 of the dinners. And but I didn't snack aside from the shake. I had protein. Like I made sure that protein was the hero. We've talked about this on here before. Protein was the hero of all my dishes. Like I had duck one night, I had halibut one night, and I had, I think, lamb another night. Megan had steak a couple of the nights. Like it was great. I got an appetizer at all 3 dinners. Ate well. It was fantastic, right?
Great restaurants up there.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So I know that I probably hit the minimum proteins for for the day, but I certainly wasn't what I normally was at. I know that I was well above my calorie count.
Yeah.
But not like ridiculously above, but I was probably 500 to 1,000 calories above my calorie count for each of those days, which again, not a huge deal when I'm doing 4 days, 3 nights. If I was doing a week, maybe I need to rein it back in a little bit. But it was like, all right, we're going to just consolidate this. And we worked out each of the mornings, not to earn anything, but just because we wanted to. We wanted to move, and we didn't really have a lot else going on. So, like Megan wanted to do that rather than like rent a stand-up paddleboard and go in the lake or something like that. And I was fine with that. So we just did that. So that was the things that kind of happened throughout the week. So one of the workouts, and then I'll tell about I'll talk about what happened, and then I'll come back to the Orange Theory thing because I think this is an important kind of note. But I came back and I was 5.5 pounds higher than when I left for vacation. So doing the math, right? Lost 4, gained 5.5. So I'm net up a pound and a half from where I started the whole 2 weeks. And it would be very easy to be like, A, what was the hell the point of the 2 weeks? And B, I can't even go on vacation and do anything fun because it just ruins all my progress. Okay. Those are easy things to think.
Of course.
I sit here today about a pound and a half above where I left for vacation.
So you've
And
lost
it's
most of it.
Most of it. Why was I so high? Because a lot of salt, more carbs than usual. You know, I had been in the car, and then we got back, and it was a rough first night back with the kids, as you would probably imagine.
Yeah.
So I didn't sleep great that first night back. And so all of those things I had more food in my belly than usual. And so of the 5.5 pounds that I gained, let's just do a little bit of math for a moment. All right. Again, let's just assume, right? I'm maintenance calorie, and I didn't calculate this. If I was over my maintenance calories by 1,000 calories a day for 4 days, 4 times 1,000 is 4,000 calories over maintenance. That's a little over a pound.
Total?
Total. A pound is about 3,500 calories. So 4,000, a little bit more than a pound of body fat that I would have gained. And that's 1,000 calories. Like, it's a lot of food.
That's a lot, yeah.
It's a lot of food. Now, even if it was 1,500, we're still under 2 pounds. 1,500 times 4 is 6,000 calories, which is less than 7,000 calories, which would be 2 pounds. So less than 2 pounds of the 5.5 was body fat gained. The rest of it was water and food in my system that was eventually just going to make its way out. And is a pound to 2 pounds of body fat worth memories that I'm going to keep for my wife, with my wife for the rest of my life? 100% it is. That's not even a question. In the same way that it's not even a question that I wasn't going to have a drink to honor Glennis. In the same way that it wasn't even a question that I was going to come downstairs and walk on my walking pad when my wife is sobbing because her Nana's passing away to hit my 12,000. In the same way that that's true, it's also true. And it's not even a question that a pound to 2 pounds, even if I was in a place where I was in desperate need to do it, a pound to 2 pounds versus a lifetime of memories with my wife, absolutely worth it. Yeah. Because you know what it takes to get that back off? That takes a week or two of work. A week or two of being in a 500-ish calorie deficit every day. And I didn't even do that when I came back. I didn't go back into a deficit or anything. I just came back and started eating normally. I came back and I said, you know what I really need? I need a salad. Like I need some vegetables, because there's not a lot of vegetables happening. And so I had, a lot of vegetables those first couple of days just because you feel bloated, right? Like I felt that way coming back. And so I just ate it, and it just kind of worked its way out. It was that way after 3 days.
Yeah.
It was 3 days. It was a week ago. It was last Tuesday. We got back on Friday. By last Tuesday, I was back at, my normal weight plus a couple of pounds. Like it just wasn't, it's just not. Now, if you're regularly traveling, if you have regular events, if all of this, you know what I mean? Like this is a different situation, but like this is the first time in over 3 years. It was July of 2021. That Megan and I last got away for more than
so you should truly enjoy it.
I wasn't, and I don't think we're going away for more than, we might do another couple of nights, like 2 nights, 3 days sort of thing next year. But I don't think we do something this long again for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So the idea that I can't, I was going to give that up for something, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not. So we just got to be mindful of this. mindful of this. And I did a lot of things on that trip. I didn't do the 11,000 steps a day. I didn't do the workout every day. I didn't do the protein every day to earn the food or offset what I was going to eat or anything like that. I did that so that when I came back, I was able to do exactly what I've been doing, which is get right back to what I was doing before and keep going with my workouts and get right back on track with my nutrition. Because I was intentional with my food choices, because I prioritized protein and I was intentional with the things that I enjoyed and I made sure that I was moving and all of those types of things, it became so easy for me to just come back and it's like, this is what I do. I just continued to do it. Because the challenge for most people is if 4 days, 3 nights turns into 2 weeks, that's where we get screwed.
Right.
But if 4 days, 3 nights is 4 days, 3 nights, you're fine. And you want to know how I did that? And this is just a little tidbit for you, vacation people. Make a meal before you leave. Put it in the freezer.
To eat when you get back?
Eat when you get back. Because you know what I didn't want to do? You know what I didn't want to do on Friday after driving back and picking up the kids and they're back in the house? You know what I didn't want to have to do while they're getting reacclimatized to home? I didn't want to have to cook a dang meal. And so I wasn't going to, right? Like there was no chance that I was going to cook a meal. So the idea that what am I going to be left with? Well, I'm probably going to have to do takeout. Well, now I'm extending my vacation. So I froze 2 meals. I froze dinner on Friday night and I froze lunch on Saturday for Megan and I had stuff for breakfast on Saturday morning. So that got me through. And then Saturday morning, I went to the grocery store.
That's really smart. I never think to do that.
So it's just like, I got to have a plan for when I got to have meals prepped, ready to go, or at least easy to make through the next time I'm going to reset. Because you're not going to bring a lot. You're not going to leave a lot in your fridge or anything like that when you go on a vacation. Yeah. So this is just the intentionality. It's those little things of like, how do I set myself up for success? All right. Big thoughts on vacation cut, anything there? And then I'll do my 2-minute soliloquy on Orange Theory.
Orange Theory. No, I think it's what I needed to hear because I just got back from vacation on Sunday night and didn't do takeout on Sunday night, but we did just like run to the grocery store and get just enough to make dinner and lunch the next day, which, I mean, to get a rotisserie chicken and a bag of salad, which isn't terrible, but then like a lean cuisine to bring to work lunch the next day. Cause I'm like, I'm not cooking tonight. I'm not meal prepping. So it's really smart.
Well, especially if that's a situation, you get back Sunday night, and if you normally meal prep on Sunday, and you're like, what do I do?
Yep.
Right, and you can throw off a whole week where you're playing catch up from the whole week because you went on vacation, and you're already gonna feel that way, right? Like, oh, I need a vacation for my vacation, right? I didn't feel that way, but like oftentimes we feel that, and so we want to make the transition back that much smoother, and that's what really being intentional with your choices before, during, and after vacation is. All right, 2 minutes because then I got to run.
Orange Theory. Hit me.
Orange Theory. So we did Orange Theory workout on our last day there on Friday morning, and I'll be honest with you, it was fun. It was a good little workout. It was, I think, better than most. Right? Like, I know how Orange Theory's programming was, and I caught like one of the better programmed ones. But I'm not going to pick apart workouts, right? I'd rather workouts be workouts. Like, workouts are workouts. I'm not going to really nitpick on anything. 2 things that I'll say, right? There's a difference between strength training and working out with weights. I've talked about this before. Orange Theory is working out with weights. It's not strength training. That doesn't mean that it's bad, but it's working out with weights. It's basically cardio, right? The whole thing is cardio, which is fine. But the other thing is, if you've never been to Orange Theory, they give you, like, even for us as guests, they gave us like a heart rate monitor that you wear on your like forearm, and then they project it up on the screen a couple of places in the room, where it's like showing your heart rate and what zone you're in. We've talked about the heart rate zones. And the big thing is how many calories you're burning in the workout. And this is where I have a problem. All the rest of that's fine.
The rest of it sounds great. Except that I wouldn't want my stuff projected because I'm a super competitive person.
Well, so that was Megan's thing, is she was very competitive. Yeah. And again, it's all relative to individual people, so that was a hard thing. But let me tell you something. This thing said that I burned 863 calories in an hour.
I call baloney.
Yes, but this is the problem, right? Mm-hmm. This is not dramatically different than the technology that's used on wearables, like your Apple Watch or whatever it is. The idea that I burned 863 calories in less than an hour is absurd. Is absolutely absurd. Because honestly, I worked hard. I did not work that hard. I did not work even close to that hard to burn 863 calories. I rested for half the time. Right? Like it was intervals. The idea, but this is the problem, is that we can get into this. One is like, all right, it's like I'm sweating, therefore it's a good workout. I'm burning X amount of calories, therefore it was a good workout. And we compare to ourselves, we compare to other people, because I burned the most calories in the room. I saw on the thing, I burned the most calories in the room. So that might make somebody else think that they weren't working as hard as me. That's just not the case.
Yeah.
It's just not the case. And the idea that I burned 863 calories is a lot.
That's a heck of a lot.
You know what I mean? And so we can get into the, like, calories in, calories out. Like, don't measure your calories out. It's so inaccurate. It's so inaccurate. Like, that's not a good metric for whether or not it was a good workout. Like, I was sweaty because we were in a room with no windows, and you know what I mean? Like, I was sweating my rear end off. Yeah. I was working hard, but I was sweating my rear end off because there's 30 people in this room all sweating. Yeah. Like, that doesn't make it a better workout. Sweat. It doesn't make it a better workout than the one that I did the day before with my buddy Ren, where I didn't really sweat at all. But I lifted heavy weight and I worked hard. Like, the benefits of working out is not sweating and burning a bunch of calories. The benefits of working out are for your health. And I will hammer that to the day that I die. There are benefits for, your body composition, but dang it, if that's your mechanism, because it can be very easily this way. Like, and I'll say this, and I think she's all right with me saying it. So, like, Megan's hurt right now. Her back is hurt, and she needs to she needs to just take like a week or two and like not work out. And she has a hard time with it because in her head, she's like, I'm going to ruin all my progress. Yeah. You're not going to ruin all your progress because your progress didn't come from working out. It doesn't mean that it wasn't part of the equation, but your progress didn't come from working out. Your progress came from because you changed the way that you're eating and you're walking a ton.
Yeah. And it also didn't come in 2 weeks.
No. So you're not going to lose it in 2 weeks either. Because you're probably actually burning somewhere between 2 and 350 calories in an hour. So, do the math on that. You could walk for an hour and burn 90% of that and not have to change your clothes. I'm not saying don't work out. I'm just saying don't do it for the sake of burning calories. Yeah. A little bit of a negative thing here, but a lot of positives from this. So
this was a fun one.
Yeah, a little bit of a different structure. But
I liked it.
Appreciate you listening. Hey, if you're listening to this, I believe that this is going to come out the week that I am launching and like the day or two before. So I'm doing my last call. So if you're listening to this, just send me a message fall. I have a couple of spots open for clients. And so if you want somebody to kind of walk you through this so you know how to do vacations and life that happens and all that, this is what I do. And I'll keep saying it. Like, this is what I do. And I would like to help you with it. So send me a message, fall, and we can talk about what's getting over. But I appreciate you listening. Like, rate, subscribe, all the things. And I will see you next time.